Now, one thing I want to say when I talk about fourth quadrant and second quadrant, this is an interesting thing. I've talked to a lot of SJs, to a few SJs about my theories, and interestingly, the best receptions I've gotten have been, or from SJs, and I think it's because they can, like I said, they can recognize the truth. Um, they just have that sense that what is true, and they're sometimes, while they can be more conservative, when they see the truth, they want to protect it in a lot of ways. It's just their nature. They can recognize the truth when, so sometimes they can be duped actually too, but it seems like a lot of SJs. Like I said, it's no coincidence that Christianity, Buddhism, these religions have been followed because there's the truth within them. You see the quadrant throughout them, and you see the true principles written throughout these religions. All right. So going back to, I actually am not that big of an expert on art. I studied a little bit, but I have studied music. I noticed how everything in music is fitting the quadrant model perfect, but I'm not great at explaining a lot of this stuff. So one thing I want to say about Tupac too, who I said was an NF, I have a ton of respect for his music, and he inspired me immensely. But like I said, he was a little bit conservative in that. Like I knew this. Interestingly, it was a really religious Mexican kid who was really racist against black people. Actually, he wasn't Mexican. He might. Yeah, I think he was Mexican. But yeah, he was really racist against black people, and he was listening to Tupac, and he was like, "Man, I love Tupac so much," because Tupac was like, "Man, fuck these hoes. It's all the knows. I'm about like that." And then he was like, "Man, I love Tupac so much." Because why does he love him so much? Because he's accommodating the stereotypes so well. And the idea is, as an NF, he wanted to, he was acting, and it was so clear that he was acting. It was satirical. I can analyze his work and explain it, but he was acting. He's not really a thug. But he ended up being a conservative force. And look at it, white kids today. They look and they say, "Oh yeah, all black people are like that." A lot, not all white kids, but it's a common thing. They like this Mexican kid. They listen to him and they say, "Oh man, I love Tupac so much," because he just fulfills their stereotypical notions so perfectly in these songs, in some of these songs. All right. But then his other songs are really, he has other songs where he's trying to be inspiring. Like, there's songs where he's sexist, but there's songs where he's trying to be inspiring, and he is inspiring, and it's very philosophical, a lot of his work. So I wrote an essay on his work, "You Can't See Me." And he's talking about how he's beyond, you can't see him, you can't pigeonhole him, you can't understand what he's really about. But he has a lot of good stuff. Just actually amazing stuff. I study a lot of this stuff. It's really good. If you look deep into it. He says the truth is plain to see. The truth is plain to see. The truth can be seen in the quadrant. So let's continue. Going back to painting, one example of a painting that I liked was, or it was kind of a painting, but it was this work of art by some guy that when you look at it from different angles, it appears differently. So the idea is you as the observer are constructing the painting. You are constructing the reality. Well, this is a concept in quantum mechanics and in physics nowadays that says that it is true. Just by observing reality, you are changing it, and in a way, you actually, just in your observation of reality, are creating it. They test this through this experiment called the double slit experiment. This is one example where they shoot an electron through a hole, and they measure its interference pattern. I'm not going to explain it exactly because I don't even understand too much of it exactly. But what ends up happening is if you observe it, the interference pattern is completely different than if you're not observing it. Sometimes it's a wave pattern, sometimes it's a particle pattern. So you even change the whole complete nature of the electron just by observing it. So your observation of reality changes a reality. Well, this is reflected in this painting, where when you look at it from different angles, the painting changes. The viewer is affecting the work of art. The viewer is affecting reality. So remember, I described the 4 primary sciences. We got physics, chemistry, biology, and psychology. And remember I said scientists say, well, the reason why we can understand reality so well is because, why our psychologies, our minds can discern the nature of reality so well is because we were shaped by reality through natural selection and biology. And through, the physics, the physical nature of our the physics in our surroundings shaped us. The chemistry of our surroundings shaped us. So it makes sense that we would understand the world around us because we were shaped by the world around us. Well, this concept actually completely inverts this. Perhaps we understand the nature of reality so much, and this is what this art is bringing to mind. This is what this art is causing you to question. Perhaps you understand the nature of reality so well because you actually are creating reality in your observation of it. Your mind is creating reality. Why can you understand it so well? Why can physics, why can chemistry, biology, why do we understand these things so well? Because we are actually producing it in our observation of it. This is what this artwork sparks in my mind. So that's one example of a painting. There's another example of one where the artist has someone else draw the painting for him, and then he takes credit for the painting. And he makes a signature, but he tells another person or other people what to do. And this brings to mind the idea of deism. So the idea of deism was an idea that God creates the universe, but he doesn't participate in it, in its unfolding, in what goes on in the universe. So the idea would be, the humans are doing all this work, we're building stuff, and we're doing all these things, and we give the credit to God. But according to a deist, why would you give the credit to God? He's not even doing anything. He has already left. I'm not saying that this is true. The quadrant model shows that everything fits the form. So I'm not saying this is true, but this is what art does. Art causes you to question things. Art causes you to ponder the nature of reality. And this is what that artwork sparks in someone's mind. I've seen a lot of big artworks, quadrant based, but I'm not going to get into it too much. That can be described more hopefully later. But so then we have, okay, let me think of another good artwork that causes you to think. All right, well, we got music. I think of the Beatles. When I think of music, would be one example of how it fits the quadrant. We had the Beatles. There was 4 main members, and there was a possible 5th. And the thing about the Beatles, just look at their music. The words in the quadrant model, they're always mentioning these words. Like George Harrison. He has a song, "My Sweet Lord, Hare Krishna," and so he's dedicating this song to Krishna, his Lord. It turned out that he got really into Hinduism, and he says, "I really want to know you, Hari Hari." This is how the song goes, and so if you think about it, this is what art does. So he starts off the song by saying, "My sweet Lord, I really, and a Christian's going to be listening to this song. This is a song made in the Western culture, and he's going to be thinking, yeah, he's talking about Jesus. And then he completely shocks the listener by having the background say, Hare Krishna. So what does art do? Art causes you to question. It shakes you up. It makes you start to ponder the nature of reality. I don't think that George Harrison did this without realizing that he would spark controversy. This is what artwork does. And I really do enjoy analyzing. I've enjoyed analyzing art a lot, and I would like to hopefully partake in explaining more, but we don't have too much time to go into too much details with stuff. So then we have literature and cinema. Remember I said that literature and cinema are always connected. Like I said, look at Genesis, you have the chiasmatic structure in Daniel. And then you see this in literature as well. Really good works of literature. This type of structure. One thing I want to say about art that I think is, or about music that I forgot to mention, and music and dance is, music in America has been really influenced by minstrel shows. And what minstrel shows was white people dressing up in, I think they call it like black mask or something, where they would dress up and pretend to be black. They would paint their faces, they pretend to be black, and they dance around pretending to be black, and they would sing, and then black people ended up participating in this. And interestingly, it kind of started off when black people were watching the white people dance, and the black people started making fun of the white people, and then the white people started to dance, dress up in blackface and try to dance like the black people, but the black people were actually dancing, trying to make fun of the white people. So there's this feedback loop, which is really funny. And but remember, I said that there's, according to the quadrant model, there's the Asian first quadrant, seen as the Asian, and then the white, and then black, and then there's the brown. The Asian was the superior, but outsider according to this sociologist model, and then white insider, superior, black insider inferior, and then the fourth possibility is outsider inferior, and that would be brown. According to this person's model. I forget what her name was. But what I want to say is, what's fascinating is white or Asian people would dress up in whiteface. So when white people went over to Asia, they saw that Asian people, when they were doing their shows, they would dress up their faces all white. So they kind of had a connection there. And the white people are like, hey, we dress our faces up in all black. So remember, the Asian quadrant wants to be the white wants to be the black, and the black is, kind of wanted to be this way to the brown. And then, so it's an interesting. I'm not going to get too much into music, but music all just fits the quadrant. But just think about it. 16 bars is usually how it works. There's these patterns of A, B, A, C, of using these. This is how music is based on. I just want to give a few examples, like Beethoven, his symphony where it goes. Well, he said that he got this symphony. He was inspired by God. He said that God told him this symphony. Well, think about it. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So and this is what he said. He got the symphony from God. I studied Mozart stuff. Mozart stuff is all based on the quadrant. I'm not going to get into it too much because I'm not that great at explaining it. I want to say too, I forgot to mention when we were talking about biology, the butterfly has the 4 stages before it becomes a butterfly. When it goes to the caterpillar to the butterfly, they studied these monarch butterflies, and I think it was the monarch butterflies in their migration patterns. And what happens is the butterfly goes from I think somewhere in the north, maybe North America somewhere, and they end up going somewhere in the south, maybe South America. I forget exactly where, but there's 4 stages in a trip. They go one stage and then they stop and then they die, I think, and then they have their kids, and then those kids go the next stage, and then there's the next stage, and then there's the 4th stage, and then they go all the way back to the north. So there's 4 stages of the trip, revealing the quadrant. The quadrant is always trying to be revealed through nature. The quadrant is always revealed through nature. We can get more into biology stuff too, but biology is all about the quadrant. Natural selection stuff, it's all about the quadrant. Darwin stuff is all about the quadrant. What else did I want to say? Oh, also look at Mount Everest. Mount Everest, there's 4 parts to the trip, to the journey. There's the first part, the second part, the third part, and the 4th part's the most deadly part. That's the part where most people die. Remember, the 4th is always death. But the quadrant's always being revealed. So then you got, so we talked about, we had dancing, literature, and cinema. One cinema I want to talk about, I mean, there's so much good stuff, you know. But one of them, and actually, according to my cinema teacher, all cinema now sucks. My cinema teacher says that cinema is supposed to be about angles, and you know, it's supposed to be about, he talks about ocular gymnastics. It's supposed to make your eyes move from place to place, and there's supposed to be meaning through space. There's supposed to be meaning through where the person's body is in space and the angle that he's shown. And this is supposed to have some sort of metaphorical meaning that he says that is completely lacking in modern cinema, where everything is centralized. So this is his opinion on modern cinema. He says modern cinema is worthless. But I'm going to talk about modern cinema anyways, and I'm going to say that there's one modern cinema movie that really gets you thinking. It's called Being John Malkovich, and once again, it's about being. Remember the 17th quadrant. The 17th is God. A lot of people have said that God is just being. Ancient Christian philosophers said this, that God is being, and there's a whole field of philosophy dedicated to the study of the nature of being called ontology. But in Being John Malkovich, the people can go through this hole, this special hole, and in so doing, they can transport their minds to the body of John Malkovich, and they can be John Malkovich for like 15 minutes. So basically what these people can do is they can become another person. One second. So here is the philosophical implications of this. What this brings to mind to me is solipsism. There's an important concept in philosophy called zombies, and it's in the study of consciousness in philosophy. And how it works is, it says that you look at other people around you, and you say, I think that they're real. These people, you know, they're walking around. They're talking, they seem like they have emotions, they seem like they're thinking, they're doing things, they seem like they're sensing things, they seem like they have beliefs. They must be real. But according to this, this is what this famous philosopher David Chalmers talks about it a lot. I think his name is David Chalmers, I could be wrong. But I think his name is Chalmers at least. But he talks about the zombies, and he says that really, all that you can know is that you yourself are conscious. You can infer that other people are conscious. You know, they're walking around, they're talking, they're smiling, they seem like they sense, they seem like they're like you. But he says that, do you really experience them doing this? Can you really go inside their minds and see if they are like this? He says that this is a big inference that we make. He says that, so the idea is really all that all that we can know is that we are conscious, and so the implication is solipsism is not a stupid philosophy. A lot of people look down upon solipsism. What solipsism is, the idea that you are the only person who is conscious and you are all that exists in the universe. Now, I've said this to somebody, and actually the person was an NF, and the person said, "Oh gosh, you are so selfish." He said, "Oh, I can't believe that you would think this." And I told him, "I'm selfish." I said, "You're just trying to sound politically correct." I'm not being selfish. I'm being philosophically honest. I'm not saying that, okay, because solipsism offends a lot of people, so I'm not saying, oh yeah, I'm a solipsist, but I'm saying it's a philosophically honest position. Because if you want to be philosophically honest, it's true. I cannot judge if another person has qualia. What qualia is that, he can sense things. I cannot tell if this is so. I cannot go into his mind like in this movie and become John Malkovich. I just assume that John Malkovich has a consciousness. This is an inference that I make. But there's no way of me really being sure. The only thing that I can be sure about is that I am conscious of stuff. Descartes talked about this. Descartes said that there might be an evil demon in the universe making you think that everything is going on around you, and really you are just being tricked. And this demon is imprisoning you in this consciousness. So this is a philosophically honest position I'm going to take. I say the same thing to you if you are listening, if you exist. Once again, if you really are conscious. But if you are conscious, I say it's a philosophically honest position that you can take in philosophy as well. Why? Because if it's true that you have consciousness, then you don't know that I have consciousness. How do you know that I have consciousness? You haven't gone into my mind. You're not experiencing what I'm experiencing. You're just guessing that. So it's an honest philosophical position to take. But what I'm getting at is this is what being John Malkovich sparks in someone's head. What art does is it starts to make you question reality. This is the nature of art. Art is a destructive force. Art is a disillusioning force. It causes you to question existence itself. What better field of inquiry to point you to philosophy, the fourth quadrant? So we have science, first quadrant, religion, second quadrant, art, third quadrant, and philosophy, the fourth quadrant. Art has transitioned us perfectly into hopefully the next talk, which is on philosophy.